Tonight's program was really inspired by this young lady to my right. I haven't been to a...
Wow.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No.
I have to say I hadn't been to a Mid-Hudson Pattern for Progress meeting in a long time. And consistent with this organization's desire to at least explore the other neighboring counties and the firm belief that life doesn't end at the Westchester County Putnam border or the Westchester County, I think you border Orange, but anyway, life doesn't end at the Westchester County border. And Mr. Nelson? And, I'm sorry, but you know, I know you're the second most interesting man in the world, but you know, he lost out to Dos Equis, the most interesting man in the world. No, but one of our actually the most consistent and supportive members, a past president and very active still in the Association of the Apartment Owners Advisory Council. But, because I had to digress, I had the pleasure of meeting Emily Hamilton at a recent meeting about a month ago with the Mid-Hudson Patterns for Progress.
October 14th, actually 2 months ago.
What was that?
Exactly 2 months ago.
Oh, 2 months ago, okay. Yes, I remember it well. Maurice Chevalier and Hermione Gingrich. Don't get me started. Anyway, so the thing is, and she told me about a very interesting study of the Hispanic community in the Hudson Valley area. That brought to mind, you know, a more general dynamic or vision I had for the program of what's the story with the labor force? What's the story with the skilled labor force? We hear anecdotally from time to time that there's a shortage of skilled labor, but at the same time we know that there are organizations, present companies included, and companies and BOCES and other agencies that really take the training of men and women in the construction trades very seriously. And when I mean the construction and real estate trades, that covers everything, soup to nuts, from property management, building maintenance, carpentry, masonry, you name it. And so I thought it would make a good program. We will start with, I think, a very significant landmark study of the Hispanic population in the Hudson Valley area, which Emily Hamilton has authored, and we'll go for that. Emily, how long is your, if I may ask?
It's about maybe 5 minutes.
Oh, 5?
10 minutes.
Couldn't you stretch it?
Well, I'm sure there'll be follow-up questions, and I could.
So Emily will start
It
with
depends
some...
on how much detail I get.
Emily, you can have a good 10 minutes or so on this.
Okay.
I automatically quintupled your time.
Thank you.
But she'll start with some of the highlights of her study, and then I'll call up my colleagues here, both from the construction industry, the training at BOCES, my colleagues at 32BJ, all of whom I think put a premium on properly trained workers for not only their skill sets, but for their health and safety. So with that, I'm going to please welcome Emily Hamilton from Mid-Hudson Pattern for Progress.
All right.
Hi, good evening. My name is Emily Hamilton, and as Albert said, I am from Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our organization. We've been around for over 50 years. We're based in Newburgh. Our office is in Newburgh, but we do research throughout the Hudson Valley. Oh, I better use the microphone, right? I'm the Deputy Director of our Center for Housing Solutions and Urban Initiatives. So within the last year, Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress has been focusing on the Hispanic population, mostly in the Mid-Hudson region. Only in the Mid-Hudson region, pretty much. So the farthest south, our study goes, or 2 studies go, because we are completing one on 4 villages and another one on 6 cities. The one on 4 villages, we've done in Brewster, in Liberty, Monticello, and Walton. And the 6 cities, we focused on Newburgh, probably the largest Hispanic population in that part of the Hudson Valley. Well, yeah, in terms of, a city. And Poughkeepsie, Beacon, Port Jervis, Middletown, and Kingston were the other cities that we focused on for that study. The 6 cities was funded by the Economic Development Administration, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the study on the 4 villages is funded by NYSEG. So we're actually in the process of writing the final drafts for both of those reports, so they'll be coming out soon. Our report for the Economic Development Administration is due next week, Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving. So I actually only prepared, in terms of a PowerPoint, I mostly prepared about demographics, because I was told that's what people were interested in, but I can give more details about our study on Latino-owned businesses. That's what we focused on. I didn't say that yet. Hispanic or Latino-owned businesses in the Mid-Hudson region. So that's what we focused on. We focused on what are the obstacles to expanding those businesses and to Hispanics and Latinos starting businesses. So, and also just give you a bit of a background about myself. I have a housing background, I have planning background. Before I joined Pattern for Progress, I worked for New York State Housing Finance Agency, so I financed affordable housing. I also worked in various affordable housing programs in New York City and in upstate New York. And then, in terms of my background with Latino immigrants, I was a Peace Corps volunteer from 99 to 2004 in Guatemala and Paraguay. And basically, since I returned after 2004, I've had various jobs that have allowed me the fortune of working with Latino immigrants in basically throughout New York State. So, trying to figure out how to get this presentation started.
What I would suggest,
Yeah.
maybe some general characteristics of certainly the presence of the Hispanic community in Hudson Midwest and Hudson Valley.
Right.
And then,
That's what's on the PowerPoint.
I think everybody in here being in business in one form or another.
Right.
I would like to know about some of the challenges and maybe even labor shortages in the Hispanic community in the area.
Okay. So that'd probably be good.
That's me.
This doesn't seem to be. There it is. All right. While this study didn't focus on Westchester County, we knew that I would be giving this presentation tonight in Westchester County, so I just put up some data on the Hispanic population in the Westchester County. So, in terms of percentages of populations, Port Chester seems to have the highest amount of Latinos, for compared to the rest of the population, obviously. In terms of actual numbers, yeah, that would be good to see as well, but I mostly just put up percentages. Austinings is fairly high, Mount Kisco's is fairly high compared to the rest of the population. So, before I move on, I also want to point out that this study that we are completing on Latino-owned businesses in the Mid-Hudson region is part of what's called our UAA, or Urban Action Agenda, and most recently that was funded by the Ford Foundation. And It covers 25 urban centers throughout the Hudson Valley, and these communities are in red on that map, with about, 5 of them in Westchester. So all of these communities that we chose to do our research on, in terms of Latino businesses, are part of this urban action agenda. And the urban action agenda, I should tell you exactly what that is basically, it's a multi-year initiative to promote the revitalization and growth of urban centers throughout the 9-county Hudson Valley region, which includes Westchester, Rockland, Orange, Putnam, Dutchess, Ulster, Sullivan, Columbia, and Lee counties. So I'll go through these fairly quickly so I can talk more about the study, but this is to just show you the growth of the Hispanic population in the cities, and well, mostly we only have graphs rather for the cities. I'll give summaries of the population changes in the villages. But so, as it says, the population grew from 6.5% to 15% in Kingston from 2000 to 2015. And Middletown grew from 25% in 2000 to 38% in 2015. All of these numbers are coming from the American Community Survey. And yeah, the nationalities in the Middletown are majority Puerto Rican. The second largest group are Mexican, identify themselves as Mexican. In Beacon, the largest group is Puerto Rican, but people who identify themselves as South American are growing in Beacon. The population isn't growing as fast in Beacon, but it's still a considerable amount of the population, it's about 20%. In Newburgh, majority are Mexican, and as I said before, it's about 51% now of the population. Central American population is growing in Newburgh. You can also tell this by the businesses. I noticed a number of El Salvadoran and Guatemalan restaurants, and that makes me happy because I lived in Guatemala. And then Poughkeepsie, I don't know if you've ever heard this term, but some people refer to it as Oaxaquipsie because a large majority of the Mexican population comes from the state of Oaxaca in southern Mexico. And that population has also grew considerably from 10% to 21% of the population in 2015. And then Port Jervis hasn't grown as fast, but it's grown from about 7% to 9% of the population, and its majority is Puerto Rican. So Brewster, the population there has grown considerably for a small village, from 32% in 2000 to about 60%. Yeah. In 2015, and the majority of the population there is Guatemalan. And mostly from a state in Guatemala called Chiquimula, which is in eastern Guatemala at the border of Honduras. Walden, the population grew from 15% to 27%, with the majority being Puerto Rican. And there are actually not a lot of businesses in Walden that are Latino owned. I think there's about, offhand, there's about 6 maybe. Liberty, the Hispanic businesses are growing there, and the population grew from 14% to 32%. And Central American population is growing there, as well as in Monticello, the Central American population is growing. And as it says, 23% to 32%. So that's some information about us, but I can give you more information about what we found out in the study. So within these Latino businesses, most of them are smaller. They're restaurants, they're bakeries, they provide services to the community, translation services and money transfer services. you can buy dresses for 15th birthday parties, things like that. I mean, and then there are some Latino businesses that we have contact with, contractors, landscaping businesses, and some restaurants that are interacting more with the non-Hispanic community. So in terms of labor shortages, a lot of them complain about not dependable labor. A lot of them are run by families, and they finance their businesses with their own financing. They're not getting bank loans or non-traditional loans. There's various sources of non-traditional capital available. And some of them have been in the area for, some are new, some businesses are new, like especially in Monticello and Liberty. They're newer businesses, but Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, a lot of them there are more established businesses. And yes, there is definitely interest in people wanting to invest more in the community and grow their businesses, but there is also concern about security in Poughkeepsie, and in terms of the perception, especially in Newburgh, Kingston. There's just a lot of perception. Sometimes it's true in some cases with the gang activity happening in Newburgh occasionally. But there's also a significant, I don't know the exact number because, it's really hard to count the undocumented population, especially in a study like this, but there are a number of people who are undocumented, unauthorized immigrants who have businesses, and they've been in Middletown, Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, almost all the places that we did this study for a number of years, and they're conducting their businesses in the shadows. But at the same time, they are in the shadows, but at the same time, a number of them are also, they have the proper permits, they are paying their taxes. So, anything else?
Well, Emily, by the way, if this is the wrap up for now, I'm going to suggest that we keep our questions on ice until we hear from other panelists, and we'll proceed from there.
Sounds good.
Something Emily said rang a bell about my memory of Italians in 1930s Mount Vernon. I wasn't around then, by the way, but the stories that I grew up with. A few years ago, there were two economists from Rutgers University who did landmark studies. Your study was kind of evocative of these far more extensive studies at Rutgers University, when it was these two economists, Thomas Vietorese and I forget the other gentleman. But anyway, they did studies of the urban economies of various cities, the underground economy, how certain ethnic groups had to really make do because, let's say, they weren't getting the financing from traditional banks and loans due to prejudice or uncertainty or whatever excuse there was, legitimate or illegitimate. And I remember in Mount Vernon, the Italians in the 1930s, they kind of coped doing the same thing. It was the midst of the Depression, so that by the 1950s, the underground economy as well as the above ground economy, who was a barber, who was a shoemaker, who was a hitman, who was, and I remember even as a lad, my mother sending me down to Giuseppe Mangiapane's cigar store, and she'd say, just tell the nice man here's 50 cents on 201. It was the numbers. But this is what there was in the urban economy. And people did what they had to do. I'm not making it dramatic, it is what it is. Kind of like today, people do what they have to do to earn a living, survive, and hopefully things will be better for their families and their sons and their grandchildren and children going forward. But with that little bit of nostalgia, I would like to talk about one of my 11th hour fill-ins, who was very gracious to join us up here. And, oh, excuse me, your introduction. I knew I had the script. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Steve Simpson, who's been a long time a supporter of the BRI. And I forget exactly how we got to know each other, but he is the head of carpentry and training at the Tech Center in the Yorktown branch of BOCES, Northern Westchester BOCES, Putnam, Northern Westchester. And needless to say, anybody who's familiar with BOCES knows what a great job they do with a lot of kids, with a lot of students. So just to give us a perspective on the training side and certainly some of the many benefits and probably some of the challenges too, is please welcome Steve Simpson from Northern Westchester BOCES.
You'll have to excuse me because I've got to read these notes that I scribbled in the short amount of time that
We
Albert
can raise
gave
the
me.
lights again.
Oh, okay, sure.
I did that for your benefit.
Anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Steve Simpson. I'm the lead carpentry teacher at the Tech Center. I've been there 31 years. Time's flown by. It's been a wonderful experience. I've worked with all phases of carpentry, finish. Mostly I deal now in rough carpentry. I train a good deal of young Spanish people. And along with that, I have a Spanish interpreter in my class with me, as well as my teaching assistant. So they're energetic, they're go-getters, and they're just wonderful people to work with. Anyway, I am trained as an OSHA certified instructor in 10 and 30-hour cards, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I'm also a certified NCCR curriculum instructor, which is a global curriculum that's offered at our site in a number of the classes. And we usually try to bring on juniors and seniors, but we get them as early as freshman year, not often. And we have a 2-year program. And in that, we train them first in safety. We drill them hard on safety. They receive their 10-hour card, and they get trained in hand skill exercises. Then we move into portable power tools, stationary power tools. They work with black powder. They work with nail guns, and we frame both in the building. We have a large classroom, it's over 5,000 square feet. And we work outside as well on the pad. In addition to my program, there's many other programs that students can enter. We have roughly 1,300 students. Unlike some of the other BOCES in the state of New York, our enrollment, thanks to the efforts of our marketing department and the vision of our director, has increased over the past 5 years. And we're now up to 1,300 students during the day. Some of the classrooms are jam-packed. We have HVAC, culinary arts, masonry, architectural, design, CAD, electronics, repair, plumbing, welding, the automotive trades to include auto body, nursing assistance program, veterinary care, police science, small business, TV production, robotics, and that's just to name a few. I'm sure I'm forgetting others. And there's electricity, which my son is attending that class. And now my son's going to attend the University of Florida and study biomechanical engineering next year, but he has half the day free this year. He's got all his high school credits ready, and I didn't want him just hanging out and playing Xbox, so I thought that he could definitely pick up a trade. I taught him what I can as far as carpentry is concerned, and I could drag him out of bed on the weekends. And he's now being taught by a friend of mine in electrical, and he caught up last year on a lot of the junior demands in the program. I brought him in for 4 days, and he worked there for 6 hours a day, going through their skill exercises. And he's now on the 2nd year level, and he's doing quite well, and he loves it. And this is a way for him to bring in some money on the weekends and maybe after school while he's in college, rather than flipping burgers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'd like him to make significantly more money than that. Our programs, by the way, are constantly evolving. We seek advice from people such as yourselves and find out what the demands you have in the workplace, and we try to supply programs that will meet those demands. We offer second-year students the opportunities to go out and job shadow. Many of these job shadowing opportunities are offered by students who used to be in our programs. So they come back as contractors, successful contractors, and they hire our students with the understanding that the kids will work after school and eventually and on Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, and then they'll pick them up during the summer, and then when they graduate, if it works out, they will be employed full-time. For the professionals amongst us who would like to continue to sharpen their skills, we offer adult ed programs in most of the trade areas, and they are offered at night, and there are flyers that are sent out, mailers that are sent out to announce when they are available and the cost of them and their hours. I'm proud to be a member. I want to just end it on this note. I'm proud to be a member of the BRI, and Jeff, Hanley, and Albert have been so kind as far as welcoming me into the BRI, and I think it was last month or possibly the month before, we had a meeting covering OSHA. We deal with OSHA 180 days. It's not a 2-weekend deal. We deal with OSHA every day. We just had a toolbox safety lesson today in addition to our other curriculum, and the kids have to sign off on it for both OSHA and for NCCR. So I loved what was presented at the last meeting. It was excellent, and I find it very informative, and I enjoy being a part of the BRI, and I thank you for your friendship and being a part of this presentation tonight. Thank you, folks.
I always equivocated BOCES in my mind to the European model, if I'm not mistaken, just based on what Steve Simpson said. And usually by the 8th grade over in Italy and other places, but I can only speak about Italy based on my father's experience. By the 8th grade, they pretty much knew whether you were going to be a chemical engineer or a bookman, you know, that kind of thing. But in my father's case, I can say this in all honesty, he was not very technically oriented as I am. I'm not. So he wasn't going to be a chemical engineer or a physicist or whatever, but he went to trade school and in 8th grade, and you know, he has now the dubious skill of being able to crack any safe within 3 minutes. I seem to be forgetting my papers here. I'm sorry. I'm having such a good time. Next, I'd like to call on a builder, developer, member of ours, Daniel Dawkins, to give us, you know, kind of a report from the field in terms of his experiences as a builder and experiencing any labor shortages or, you know, labor-related issues that might have presented a problem as he was doing a particular project or whatever. So, Daniel, why don't you come up, and thank you so much for appearing on our panel.
Thanks for having me, BRI. First, I would like to say I'm actually a product of a trained student from trade school. I actually went to job corps myself, so I know how important it is, you know, to go through the variations of the trades. And, you know, when I'm bringing guys out on the site, whether they're, you know, new to the field or been in the business years, you know, you can be able to see the structure when you go through, you know, trade school and stuff like that. So it's really, really important. As far as, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a carpenter by trade. I started out in '97, which, you know, probably earlier than that, like you said, when you were younger, you had your son earlier. But I was always pretty much hands-on, taking things apart, stuff like that. So when I got into Job Corps, I knew that I wanted to, do something with my hands, so I decided to pick carpentry. Now, over the years, it's been 18 years now that I have been in business successfully, and I'm still pushing, and the light bulb is actually just now, starting to come on. But it started from back then, and it's really, really important. And I do see and experience the change with the labor force. I see demographically it's changing. To piggyback off a presentation, having not really traveled much around the world, when I actually had a chance to go into Mexico and see, the conditions of the livings and things of that nature, it kind of makes sense why the Hispanic market is a little hungry in this industry when it comes to construction. And you do see the labor force changing, all the way across the board. What's really important, especially, what I try to do as far as my company, is to try to take guys from the bottom and show them the tools, then show them the use of the tools. And then let them, start building, because what the industry is allowing to happen is most of the guys that I see, they are labor, but they're not skilled labor. And a lot of people get it confused because you can install a sheet of drywall, but you don't know why you're doing it. And you find that a lot now that's happening inside the trade, and that's why it's important for management as well, because a lot of these production teams and guys who say they're carpenters and don't understand the difference between carpentry and being a carpenter and being a framer and a plumber, all of those are actually individual different trades. From my study back in the days, I guess biblical time, a carpenter done everything. But it took so long, to erect buildings and stuff like that, so they broke all the trades and everything up. We don't have that anymore. And when I was when I was younger, I had my neighbor, watching, elderly men, doing construction, whether it's on my home, whether it's on our block. And growing up in Brooklyn, you've seen the tradesmen going to work. Nowadays, you don't see it anymore, but they're out there and they're in groups, whether it's Home Depot, whether it's a corner and stuff like that. And what happens is contractors get in desperate modes where they start grabbing people just to fill bodies to be on these sites so their client can say, hey, somebody is at least at my job site. But what happens is you have labor, but you don't have skilled labor. And a lot of what I'm finding is mainly I see a lot of that more on the northern side, because I started building in Atlanta and then brought my business here to New York. New York has set a standard that I think need to be changed, and us as business owners is something that we have to create in our business model of who we employ and how they operate, and then the training that we actually give them. Because in the mindset of the tradesmen nowadays, they're more concerned about, I make $200 a day, but what does that really mean? And I find that to be what's driving them to show up to job sites versus the actual physical skill that's going to keep that income generated. And that's what's been missing from being passed down through generations, because that's what was given to me. So I think we got property manager here, we got builders, we got teachers, we got trainers. Those are the key points that I think need to be really stressed when we talk about training, and we will start gaining back the skilled trade market itself. You have people who've been in the business for a while, they feel entitled. They feel it's things beneath them. And I have experienced paying people top dollar that felt like they didn't want to do a certain amount of things in a day, and they making more than everyone in the company. And that's the feel of entitlement, that when it comes to a trade, you should be able to come into a job site and do whatever needs to be done, whether you're pushing a broom, whether you putting up sheetrock, whether you framing. All of those things are missing when we talk about, skilled labor. So that's really, really important, and that's why I decided to, get on the panel tonight. Didn't really know what I wanted to discuss, but these are challenges that I'm having in my own business. And I went from 14 guys working actively with a handful of subs down to a few guys and minimize the number of subs until we can find people that have that same core quality, within themselves, and just understanding that it's more than just making $200 a day, because at 4 o'clock they're going, but production haven't been gotten done. And then a lot of times, what we do as business owners, which I try not to do, is a lot of these construction companies are fueling men with their personal hand tools, and what that's doing is it's taking the integrity and the initiative for them to even want to learn their trade, because one, they never invested in themselves. So your tools that you purchase for them does have no value. So they'll never learn how to use those tools. And that's why it's really, really important to have trade schools like that. And I want to speak to him after I leave, because with me going through Job Corps, I went back a few years, to go speak, to the graduating class, and they took carpentry out of the program. And I really didn't understand, one of the main key components of the element of all the trades is carpentry, but they took it out, and it's hard to find it. So for him to mention that carpentry still exists within our community, there's a lot of young men throughout all these different areas that she mentioned, and I've been up to Newburgh, I've seen the buildings, I see the people, and when you ask the questions of why is, and then it's so much construction going on, and everyone needs a job, but no one's working, that's a problem. So those is just, some of my insights. It's a lot more that I can touch on, but we only have such a small period of time. But when we talk about skilled labor, it's about the integrity itself and knowing what those tools really mean, in a speculative, in an operative form, with framing squares, T-squares, the compass, what does that really do? You can apply the compass to your life. You're the point within a circle. So if they took that initiative and utilized those working tools for themselves and worked on themselves as part of learning the trade, then they will become skilled, and that's something that can be passed down, to generations behind, and that's what we don't have anymore.
Builders and contractors. And before we get to our final panelists, Damien Amadeo, do you want to, I'm assuming you have similar experiences. Please stand if you want to opine a little bit. Jeff, do we have a mic for Damien?
We have the exclusive Damien mic on the way. Here you go.
I don't like print. Oh, well. So that was a great presentation, and I've been in business for 20 years. I'm Amadeo Contracting. We are a design build firm, and I started out at 22 years old with my own business. And it's been a long road, and learning and going through the challenges and facing the same exact challenges. I would love to speak. We should set up lunch sometimes, because I think that we have a lot to learn from one another and how to face these challenges. When I was asked to speak about this partially today at 4 o'clock today, I wondered to myself, is this topic about not enough skilled labor as far as the amount of people that are available, or is it the skilled labor itself, what's out there? And I think it is, there's plenty of people there's plenty of bodies. To the gentleman's point, what was your first name? I'm sorry.
Daniel.
Daniel, I'm sorry, Daniel, okay. So to Daniel's point, I think that there is a serious problem. We do high-end construction, and I'll do anything from a kitchen or bathroom to a 10 or 15,000 square foot home. And it's a serious, serious problem out there that people don't know how to use their tools, but they don't care. They don't want to learn how to use their tools properly. Growing up and working for quite a few different contractors, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, before I went out on my own, I couldn't wait to soak up the knowledge of learning how to do tile work and framing and finished carpentry and cabinet making. And it was something that I just I really loved, and I still love it today. I don't do the physical work anymore. But there is a serious issue, and I wonder what it's going to mean to our industry 10 years from now, when there are plenty of clients who still want to build 10,000 square foot homes or 2,000 square foot homes, and the quality continues to decrease. And that is a serious issue. I don't quite know how to address it or curb it, but I think that the more business owners meet, like Daniel and I would definitely love to have lunch, like I said, and the more we kind of gather our thoughts and figure out how we can address it, hopefully we can avoid.
Thank you. We'll take, Carl will take questions after. Anybody else? George or Stacy? Would you mind handing her the mic, please?
We're in an excavation, so we're in construction, and I think what's happening is the schools are not encouraging these kids to do something besides go to college. And I have encouraged my own kids to go to college, and they would have liked nothing better than to come into the business. So I've fell into that with my own children because of pressures and whatnot. So I think we need to get to our guidance counselors in our schools to talk to them and not discourage that it's bad if you don't go to college, because in reality, those are the young people that are going to come into our businesses that want to learn a skill. So I think there is a huge problem with our society and in Westchester and where we live. And I think that's a big problem, because even as parents, you can't become an auto mechanic or you can't become a plumber, because people will look down at that. And I think that is a huge problem.
You hit on the very issue which was recognized by European education maybe centuries ago, that there was vocational education, there was professional education, you worked for a mentor in the guilds or whatever it was, and it's a marvelous tradition which somehow got off track, if it ever took hold in the States. And this is not to inject my situation, but on the point, and I think it's not a funny issue at all. My wife's a 4th grade teacher in Yonkers. The children, if I may use this prop, the children, they don't even know how to hold a pencil, because all they know is this. And when you don't know how to use a pencil or a pen, then how do you mark or measure out and flush out what you have to do on a project or whatever? And it breaks my heart to hear my wife talking about these kids. They don't know how to write. Forget about script, by the way. Forget about script. I only went script because Sister Margaret Williams used to rap me on the knuckles. But that was a generation. I don't want to say long gone for those of my generation, but that's gone. That's just gone. If no one else from the construction field, yes.
Bill Jacobson.
How you doing? I came from corporate and I went into the blue collar business. And I think our parents taught us differently. We were accountable. They're not accountable now. They don't care if they do a good job because all they care about is the money. And the problem is that we have to pay them the money because we need a body. We need somebody to go to work. We need somebody. I have a small business and I grew it from nothing and I did very well. But I lost 10 workers this year just because they didn't want to work. They considered that they should be making more money. And I don't know if it's a psychological thing, because if they're not accountable to do a good job, we still pay them, but people aren't coming into the workforce. And my wife's with an electrical company, and they're paying prevailing wage of $55 to $110 an hour for electricians. They can't find them. They leave with the business, with the company van, and they leave for lunch. They never come back to work. And the trucks and service use. It's difficult because we were brought up differently.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were accountable. I mean, you go to Catholic school, they hit you with the yardstick. Now the children know 911.
Bill and I both went to Westlake High School, so if you didn't know your math, Mr. Capadonna would make sure that you got the lesson, by getting a chewing out. I mean, that was our...
I don't know what the answer is, and I certainly really, really hope we find it, because we are losing the workforce, whether it's they don't have the appetite to want to go into carpentry or plumbing or skilled labor, but it's the unaccountability for us to pay them to go to work, and they don't care at the end of the day unless they get paid.
Before I introduce our final guest on our panel, I don't know if any of you listen to WCBS News Radio 880. I'm a news junkie, so I listen to it all the time. And I have to laugh at Joe Connolly, God bless him. He always has an answer for everything. The market was up 80 points because, or productivity was down because. But the consistent report that always hits me is and this is like the past 2-3 years or more, employers want to hire, they're on Indeed or whatever the sites are, but they cannot find the skilled labor for the jobs they have open. And that's been a consistent drumbeat for the past several years on this. But anyway, let me introduce our final guest. I think many of us here at the BRI know John Santos. He is basically the head honcho for the New York Metro District for a local 32BJ of the Service Employees International Union. And I'll speak for myself. It has been really my personal privilege and pleasure to have come to know him and work with the union. And every 4 years we spar a little bit with contract negotiations, but that's what it's all about. But we also have James Leggio, who's the deputy director of their 32BJ training fund, training programs. So when I thought of the need for skilled labor, constant training, OSHA, refreshers, not only for keeping the skills set up, but also for the health and safety of the workers on the job, I thought of 32BJ. So they've got some interesting things to talk about. I'm not going to steal their thunder. But please give a warm welcome to both James Leggio and John Santos of the Service Employees.
Thank you, Albert. So, again, I'm John Santos. I'm Vice President of 32BJ, SEIU. We represent over 140,000 workers up and down the East Coast, from Miami to Maine. We're your superintendents in the residential buildings, we're the porters, we're the handyman, we're the doorman. Right? In the commercial buildings, we represent the commercial cleaners. The office cleaner is in your building. The ones that are almost invisible, when you're walking out the building at 5 o'clock, they're coming in and cleaning up the offices. We represent those workers. In Hudson Valley, we also represent the golf course workers, the landscapers at the golf courses. Also represent up here in Hudson Valley the workers at Yonkers Raceway. So we have over 4,000 workers here alone in the Hudson Valley that are represented by 32BJ. In a little while, Jim is going to talk about our training center. I'd like to, Albert said, I deal a lot with a lot of the management companies and the co-op boards, and I like to think of it almost as a partnership because, yes, we come to the table every 4 years, we spar a little bit, but we come together, we reach an agreement, and we do what's best for the workers, okay? And I'd like to just applaud everybody in this room that's part of the process, and we'll be going back to the table next September, and it'll be here, sooner than you think. We're going into the table in New York City in April. There we represent over 32,000 workers. in over 3,500 buildings. Here in the Hudson Valley, we represent about 1,800 workers in over 700 buildings here in the Hudson Valley in the residential division. So I'd like to bring up Jim just to talk about, again, the partnership, because the BRI and the building owners, they pay for the worker, for this benefit that we have here, that Jim's going to talk about. It's fully funded by the employers, and it's a great benefit. And I think, when we go into bargaining and we talk about it, I mean, there's a great value to that benefit, and we've never had a problem with it. So, Jim.
Thank you. My name is Jim Leggio. I'm the Deputy Director for the 32BJ.
Jim, if you would, just go a little bit closer to the mic.
I usually have a big mouth. So anyway, again, my name is Jim Leggio. I'm Deputy Director for the Training Fund, and John stole a little bit of my thunder. First thing I wanted to say is that we are a labor management partnership. So we are not the union, we are not the management, we are a partnership, and we are run that way through an advisory board of partners from both the management companies and the union companies, and the union. And so, having said that, and our mission is basically it's on our catalog, and I have catalogs here for you, but it's educating workers to build environments where we want to work and live. And that's our goal, is to bring people up the employment ladder. We have, and before I go into all the courses and everything that we have, I just want to comment on this, is that I belong to a group that is a National Apprenticeship Conference. And we met last year, and the same problems that are happening here are happening all across the country in all the trades, both plumbing and electricity, and people who drive big rigs and mining companies. They can't get enough skilled workers, and they're looking to alternative people, retirees from jobs that are in their 40s and in their 50s, to come and do new jobs that are in this area. So this is an ongoing national problem. So anyway, I started out in 1999 here in the Bronx and New Rochelle, running the training programs up here, and now I am based in Manhattan. Our programs, we offer, I think, over 150 courses, 20 courses online, and approximately 11 career tracks that people can take. And as we've said in the past, and you'll see if any of you guys get our catalogs, you'll see that this is all free training for the members. So if you have members that need OSHA 10 hours, OSHA 30 hours, lead safety for renovation and repair training, we do that. We have both the renewal and the initial training. If you need training at your site, if you have 10 guys, I don't know, even 5 guys, that need OSHA class, OSHA 10 construction, OSHA 10 general industry, we can come to your site and do that. If you want the lead safety course done at your site, we can do that. If you have security officers, we do the 8-hour annual for them at your site. So we can do all of that. We also have 17 green courses, from Building Performance Institute to analyst courses, and we get people certified for that. It's not just the 32BJ certification, but these are EPA and New York State and DRI certifications for the green programs. And again, a lot of that we can do at your site. If you want customer service and how to deal with tenants, we can do a course at your site. We can do that at our site too, but we can farm out many of these courses to where you are. Right now we are at, like I said, 150 locations, all across from Boston down to Miami. And we offer this training, a good part of it, at all the locations. And one of the interesting things is that we've trained last year I think it's like 16,000 hours worth of training, which is about 12,500 members in classes. Some classes from a one-day class, like an 8-hour security class, to an 11-week plumbing basics class. We also have longer-term classes to get people licenses for air conditioning, licenses for other subjects. So we have a 2-year building engineer program that fits along in New York City regulations. We have a Black Seal program for New Jersey. So if there are any particular type of courses that you need for your industry here in Westchester, we can probably make some arrangements and do it. Even if one of the courses that you want is not in the catalog, we can put one together. We have a curriculum team that writes our curriculum and then gets it up to date with the industry. But it's always going on. Our advisory group runs through our curriculum and kind of says, yeah, that's a good course that the industry wants, and that's not a good course that the industry shouldn't have. We have members that are always asking for interesting courses. You know, they ask for cooking courses, it really doesn't apply, but they usually ask for courses that try to make their jobs, they're more efficient at their jobs, like the green, like an air sealing course, anything like that. So, having said that, I have a bunch of catalogs over here. If you're interested, my name again is Jim Leggio, and if you have any specific questions about any courses, I will.
All right, before we get to the, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, true. Okay, yeah. I apologize. We also offer a full range of high school equivalency classes, ESL classes, and I know that we're talking about Latinos in the marketplace. We're also talking Spanish for building service workers, so how people who do not speak Spanish as a language can take some classes in Spanish and communicate more effectively with co-workers, with tenants, with supervisors, and so on. So we have a variety of all those classes. As a matter of fact, we are working with Southern BOCES this year to do electricity and air conditioning at their site with our members.
Well, actually, hold on, we'll just get to the questions from is that it? Is that it?
Yeah, basically.
All right, now, as the executive director, I'm going to exercise my prerogative, and I've already determined, consulting with the powers that be, that the first question will be going to Emily Hamilton, and my colleague Maggie Collins has a question.
Emily, yes, I'd like to direct my question to you. Concerning the Hispanic community, are there actually stats and numbers of any kind that tell us about Latinos, Hispanics who enter the skilled labor profession in this particular area? I mean, all over the country we hear about the Hispanic community all the time, and I'm just curious if they are entering skilled labor professions in this area.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but, pattern for progress, we can look into that. But I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head.
I would just say that if you look at the workforce in the building service industry, I would say about 80%, especially up here in Hudson Valley, probably of Hispanic origin.
Anecdotally, and I'm speaking in very, very general terms, that, there was a time when the masonry, the building trades, the landscaping, there was a time when predominantly Italians did that work. And so now I would agree with John that, especially, beyond the circles of building maintenance and management, my educated guess would be that the Hispanic community is comprising a large part of that, what I would call a replacement labor force, the next wave of workers necessary for those very vital jobs. Carl Mullen has been championing, it's not chomping at the bit, champing at the bit. I learned that watching a British show, champing at the bit. So Carl, stand up, articulate, identify thyself, open thy mouth, and then sit.
All that at one time. My question is, what is somebody who's not a member do to get educated? Somebody coming off who wants to be getting involved in these things, and there are a lot of kids who are just lost, and they need a place to go that's not going to cost them anything. I mean, the education, sometimes people are great with their hands, and this would be a great place to open up something for them.
Unfortunately, I mean, we, by regulations, we only have trained members, but there are community organizations, and there are several community groups that do training in the area of something. There are pay for classes, schools, and things like that if you're interested in a topic. You know, if you want to make a career out of air conditioning, there's plenty of air conditioning schools. But there are community groups that offer them. Here in some Westchester, I know some of our teachers teach in some community groups that offer basic skills training to people. But again, those are few and far between. There's not like there's hundreds of them around, as far as I know.
Any other questions?
I think Caesar has one. There you go, my friend.
Before I ask my question, the way we were. In the late 20s, my father graduated high school, went to 3 years at Mechanics Institute, and 2 years in the union as an apprentice. And when he was a plumber. And when he retired, he had workers who didn't even know how to adjust a pipe wrench with one hand. They had to use two. Anyway, my question. We went into a lot of technical skilled labor, and one of the things at our co-op is getting people to make bids. And in Westchester, I did an informal survey in Delhi this morning of contractors. And they say it's hard to get a license in Westchester because of the insurance documentation and many of the plethora of things the county demands to do homeowner work, residential work. And it made me think that in the Hispanic, which there's plenty of talented Hispanics that already are skilled, but as Dan, you started the business, maybe is there any training on how to make a bid, how to get a license, what do you need to fill out, what forms, where do you go, how do you sign a contract, all those things of starting your own business as Dan did. Because there needs to be more people who are capable of making a bid, because when we ask for bids, the prices are high because the guys who have the license are busy and they can afford to have a high bid.
That's a good question, and that goes back to even when I have some of my office staff that may say that, you know, I get overwhelmed with estimates and why don't I let them do them? Well, when doing an estimate is basically writing up information of something that you may know or may know of. So it goes back to properly learning a trade, because it's almost like a handicap if you're trying to teach a person estimating, especially in the residential field. You know, we're not estimating off a, square foot, term of an area, as, you find some commercial buildings get erected, then once they get involved and they get into the core estimate, it's almost like they're guesstimating the true cost of the value. But in the residential sector, everything is number for number, and when it really boils down to it, it's really knowing the scale, because the estimate is just knowing how many sheets of sheetrock you need. What's the cost of that sheetrock, and things of that nature. So it will go back to, properly training for them to understand why they doing what they doing, because half these guys can install all this tile, but if you send them to Home Depot and say, hey, I need you to go pick up some type of material, they don't know what that is to find it on the shelf.
Yeah, I understand that, and estimating the whole field itself. I'm talking about getting the license, get the ability to get the license, the ability to find out what the jobs are. I think getting the license, from what I understand from the men I spoke to, can be a little bit of a difficult chore, because you need certain insurances, workman's comp insurance, this kind of insurance, and it's pretty onerous in Westchester, as I understand it.
I might be able to shed some light on it. If we have Jason or Ken first. Jason, I'll defer to him on the insurance requirements. But if you're talking about a contractor, builder, needing the necessary licensing from the county of Westchester, truth be known, the licensing procedure is a matter of them forking over $500 or $750 or whatever it is now. It is purely a revenue generator for the county. But the insurance requirements are no joke. I'm not calling it a joke, but mind you, in the state of New York, this beloved state that we live in, you know, engineers, and you know, Caesar, with your many years with DEC, engineers have to be licensed, they have to keep up on their education. Architects, same thing. A builder really is the product of his or her investment in themselves, investment in their education, their integrity, and but there is no New York State builder certification for a builder. It's interesting. So, Jason, if you want to add, you know, certainly the requirements for insurance and any other requirements that I have to defer you to talk about, but the licensing in Westchester, which happened maybe about 10, 15 years ago, was a means to, one, kind of keep track on, you know, a very, and I don't use this word as a negative, but on a very shifting, transient business often. So they get the license, they pay their $500, $750, maybe it's up to $1,000 now, and they can have the little sticker on the back of their truck saying, licensed to do business in Westchester. Putnam County has the same thing. I'm sure Bergen and Fairfield have. In reality, it's an additional source of revenue. But the insurance requirements are very real. Jason?
I don't think the insurance requirements for Westchester County are any more onerous than any other county or municipality in New York State or anywhere else in the country. You're required to get workers' compensation insurance if you have employees. That's a state law, and it's a state law in every state. And you're required to have liability insurance, which you should have if you're a contractor, because you have the potential to do bodily injury or property damage during your work. And if you're working for other people, that shouldn't be their responsibility. I think the issue goes back to things that we've talked about here, which is, you know, insurance is generally more expensive in New York State, and in particular, anywhere close to New York City, including Westchester, or for contractors that dip into New York City in the 5 boroughs, because of the scaffold law, which is an ongoing issue. And workers' compensation is generally more expensive here in New York State than it is in other states or other neighboring states, because workers' compensation benefits are tied to average weekly wages, which are higher here in New York than they are in any other state. So it's just, you know, sort of a function of what state we're in and how the insurance ties into to those issues that I just mentioned.
At our trade show about a month or so ago, we had a series of mini seminars, and in listening to all my guests here, and Jason, and the other builders around the table, Damien, we had a very interesting talk that Maggie put together. I don't know where she is now. Maggie put together the seminars. One of them was with Michael Keating, who was a long-time electrical contractor in Westchester. I think he eventually sold the business. But he now gives lectures along with Service Corps retired executives, on the things contractors must know for a successful business. And he mentioned, you know, how to estimate, how to put forward a bid, what you have to know about insurance. And this is a whole world of knowledge that all of you need outside of the particular trade you're pursuing. So it's really quite daunting, and the nice thing about that workshop, and there were other workshops, Jason had a workshop on insurance, that it really said, hey, for your own good, you've got to be aware, you've got to be educated, you've got to be skilled, but there's a whole science and art to running a business. So, you know, including the need for skilled labor. So it's fascinating. We're going to call him back for another one of those workshops at some point. Gene,
you got to my question.
I'm sorry?
I said you got to my question.
I did?
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do if you run off with the mouth long enough.
I'm confused by the education that you claim that you provide to your people. My family came from Italy, and my uncle was a carpenter, and it took him years before he was able to call himself a master carpenter and command a decent wage. Now, I'm hearing that after 10, 12 weeks, you're training an individual that is going to call themselves a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber. Did I misunderstand? Am I missing something?
Yeah.
Because
Basically,
it makes no sense.
No. We are the local 32 BJ training fund that trains building service workers. We don't train. We don't have a whole carpentry program, an electricity program, or a plumbing program. We do a basic training in carpentry, electric, and plumbing to give people the maintenance and repair of existing subjects. So the people in co-ops and condos and rents can do basic repairs on those courses. The carpentry program and the union and the electrical union is a several month-long program. It's 2-year apprenticeship and so on. We don't do that here at ARP. We just give people the basic introduction to those skills. There are some skills that we do more advanced, like an air conditioning class. We'll do a 9-month air conditioning class. We'll do a 9-month licensing class on that. But those particular skill areas, we just give a basic introduction to those courses. It's called Carpentry Basics, Plumbing Basics, and so on, just for that.
We have another question here.
Yeah, Bob Schaefer, Dean the Elevator. I heard so much tonight, and I want to speak about everything, but we have so little time left. The point of insurance, it all goes back to training. If you train and you have skilled workers, your premiums are much lower than the next guy. If you can keep your accidents to a minimum, if you can keep your liability to a minimum, it allows you to become more competitive and a lower bid. So it all comes back to training. We started a program in the Elevator in 2002. We're the only privately held company that has its own apprenticeship program approved by the state of New York. And it's been a windfall for us. We spent the money, a lot of money training people. We have a 4-year program that's not only nationally recognized, but also accredited. And it's a perfect example. We can hem and haw about it. You got to invest the money. You got to train the people. Do it well, do it good, and you'll have a great company and a successful business. And the customers will be happy as well because they'll get good quality service. I could talk about a million things, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Howard, we have a question from Peg Conover of the CCAC board.
I have a comment. I'm president of my co-op board, and we're in the process of hiring a new super. And we got 190 resumes. Only one cannabis grower. All the rest had some sort of level of, I'm sorry? Oh no. They had some level of skill all in the industry, but not all of them had the skill that we need to be a real super in a building of 228 units. And the one we did select was a 32 BJ member and left to become a super at another property that didn't have 32 BJ. And one of the reasons he wants to come back is because of the education, the training that he got from 32 BJ. So I just want to give you a compliment on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? I would like to, if I may, kind of go back to Gene's comment, because many of you might remember when there was an immediate crisis like World War II, the attack on Pearl Harbor. We had something, the U.S. Army had something, or all the armed forces had something called 90-day wonders. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And a 90-day wonder was an Army, Navy, Marine recruit, Navy too, I guess. And in 90 days, they learned judo, they learned how to kill with a bayonet, they knew how to kill with a knife, they certainly knew how to kill with a weapon, with a rifle or a Tommy gun at the time, the old Thompson machine guns. And they became, to the extent that one could, a 90-day wonder in terms of becoming a killing machine and a survival machine. Now that might be different from an arms master who learned all the arts of defense, offense, whatever. So everything that I can call, and I don't say that, I say that admiringly, that whether it be carpentry, masonry, we share the same heritage. Some of my relatives also took a long time, not because of any lack of skill, because of a long time to appreciate the mastery of that particular skill. And so, but I think this is a crisis. You know, I think any reasonable person can come to that conclusion. I talked about infrastructure before. That's a crisis. You know, this industry, this collective housing, residential and commercial and industrial industry, property management industry that we share, we're facing some serious problems. So, you know, the 90-day wonder is coming out of, I'm using that as a metaphor now, coming out of all of these wonderful programs, the elevator training program, all of your good programs. It's really in the cosmic scheme of things, almost like a stopgap measure, that at least we've got a level of proficiency that we can build up. But it takes money, it takes investment, it takes patience. All of the wonderful things that are coming out of Washington right now, money and investment and patience and respect for my fellow man and woman and all that stuff. But I knew exactly what you were talking about. And a crisis demands, dare I say, you know, you do what you can do with a limited amount of time and then you build on that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So one thing I wanted to relate my own personal story to what I feel is part of the biggest thing that I don't think any of us touched on tonight, was I worked with my hands and did a lot of the physical work for many years. And in my young 30s, I realized that I had President Clinton and Hillary Clinton for clients and great clients, and I wondered why my checking account wasn't bigger than what it was. And what I realized was that I did not know how to run my business. I knew the trade, okay, and I knew my business. I could build you whatever you wanted on paper. I could read the plans and build it, but I didn't know. The missing link for me was the education on how to be a good business owner and understand how to write a proper estimate by using the proper markup. So about 9 years ago, I hired a business coach who is in the construction industry for 50 years. He's 73 years old or so now. We've become very good friends, and he's in Washington State. And he changed my life because what he brought to me was the education to being a good business owner. And to me, that's the missing link, because I think that there's a negative stigma on us construction guys, that we all have to wear ripped jeans and have a beat-up pickup truck, and then that's a blue-collar construction worker. And I think that the more professionalism that we bring to the industry, the more respect we'll bring to the industry, the more people will want to then be involved in that trade, because they can say, I can make 6 figures being an HVAC guy. So I think, in my experience, is that the education of being a better business owner and understand how to run a healthy business. Why do I have to use 42% markup? What does that number mean to me? In 31 years old, that meant nothing to me. And now with a business coach, it changed me. So I feel like that is a very big part of the missing link, is business owners being educated as without the business degree, because not all of us went to college. And I think that the negative stigma in society that they have towards us construction guys will change if we all become more professional and become better business owners. Forget about the quality of the work.
It starts with that.
Of course it does. Of course.
How can you say forget about it?
Because if the industry, I'm not saying that the quality of the work isn't important. I'm saying you could do great quality work, but if you don't know how to run a healthy business, the quality of your work is useless. Because you're going to make bad business decisions. You're not going to be there on time because you have to go to that job to go get money and get a check from that job to go finish that job. So the quality of your work could be phenomenal. But if you don't know how to manage your money well, kiss your business goodbye.
Are you sure, I have to ask you, are you sure that your mentor isn't Michael Keating of the SCORE? That's exactly what he teaches. No, I think the point is well taken that, you know, as businessmen and women, you gotta know what the hell you're doing for your own survival and the continuation of the business. There was an article in the New York Times, speaking of quality over quantity, where the Italian shoemaker in Italy takes a full 2 weeks to make a work of art, a pair of shoes. Meanwhile, China's cracking out $2 million in the 2 weeks that he's working on one pair of shoes. There's the conundrum of quality versus mass production of quality. If there are no other questions, I do have to share one other thing before and I'll have Emily speak. I'll have Emily speak first, since she's a guest.
I just want to add, because you brought up the idea of learning how to run a business. So we didn't do this study alone. I neglected to mention that we did this study on the 6 cities I mentioned and the 4 villages along with Community Capital New York, which is a CDFI. I don't know how many of you know of what a CDFI is, Community Development Financial Institution, and they not only provide pre-development loans for affordable housing, but they also provide loans for business owners and people who want to start businesses who are not bankable. So they work a lot with the Hispanic population here in Westchester, and one of the reasons why they wanted to do this study with us is to work more with Hispanic business owners in the Mid-Hudson Valley. And now, because of this grant and because of the research that we did, they recently received a grant from Key Bank, and they're going to be providing technical assistance. So they don't just do the loans, but they also do the technical assistance in terms of running a business. So
thank you, everyone. One final note.
Raise your hand.
And we'll get to you, Joe. Back in the 1980s, and I think this was even before Jeff came along, but Jeff knows what I'm talking about. The BRI, Building and Realty Institute, was a much larger organization. We had all the building trades in our building. All the building trades. Not the heavy highway guys, that was Ross Pepe, many of you know my colleague Ross Pepe at the Construction Industry Council. He had the Tappan Z boys, and he had Nigro and Patrol, and the real gutsy guys of the infrastructure, the tunnel borers and the bridge builders, whatever. We had all the building trades, the carpenters, the teamsters, the laborers, whatever. And it was my singular pleasure, then Jeff came on board soon after that, in the late 80s. It was my singular pleasure to sit in on this wonderful, fascinating world of union negotiations, labor negotiations. And it was a wonderful thing. There were training programs, and especially for the bricklayers union, who was looking desperately for a place to have their apprenticeship program, to teach these young kids the basics of masonry and stonework or whatever. A good friend of mine was a big shot over at Westchester Community College. And he invited me over because I was telling him about, this need for a training place. And he shows me an abandoned greenhouse at Westchester Community College. I said, oh my God, this is it. It was like Nirvana, it was like Shangri-La. I saw it. It took me over a year to convince my predecessor that it was worth it to work with the unions, to get a training school right there. And I don't know, he must have had an epiphany or something, but my predecessor finally relented, probably said, let me get rid of this pain in the ass Albert. He finally relented, he said, okay, go to it. We had a wonderful training program for the bricklayers and masons trade for about 5 years. And then I think they found a place more up county a little bit. but it was a little piece of that investment in the future in the youth learning a trade that I found so rewarding. Unfortunately, towards the end of the last century, not 1900, but 2000, George spun off all those building trades to Ross Petty. Probably knowing I might be coming back, but that's another story. But I'm grateful that we have at least one unionized building discipline, building trade that we have the pleasure of working with and benefiting from, and vice versa with the Service Employees Union. So I think, Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Do you have a mic for?
You sure do. There you go, Jim. I'm trying to keep it fast because I get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to work.
You too?
So, I'm somebody who benefited from the New York City District Council of Carpenters School down in Manhattan. I went there for 4 years, many years ago. I'm no longer in that business. I do something else now. But yes, absolutely, positively, you learn a lot. You get the fundamentals to take you on to be the master carpenter. But these 12-hour classes or 9-hour classes or anything else that you talk about are absolutely essential for people that are starting out or doing work like in a co-op building or things like that. That's how they get their feet wet. That's how they get an understanding of the most basic fundamentals of safety and how to use tools and things like that. To answer your question earlier, I think a way to get kids to do things, and we tried to do this with one of my nephews, was Job Corps. What he did, Job Corps is free, am I correct? Yeah, I know of several locations. There's some in the city, well, it used to be, it's been a number of years now, and there used to be one up in the Catskill area that was converted seminary or something like that. That's a Job Corps. People can actually go away and they can stay there for months and months, and the government pays and teaches them, gives them an education, and also gets them off the streets so they can come back. To touch on something else, again, your apprenticeship program, that's the way to do it. Also, Small Business Development Council or Small Business Development something or other, committee or something like that. There's one located at Lehman College in the Bronx, which does not encompass only New York City or the 5 boroughs, but they do offer training classes for getting funding for your small business. They also help you with all of that stuff. There's one in Westchester County that's run through the county executive's office, so maybe George Latimer is the guy we got to talk to, that, and I happened to pull it up on my phone while I was here, and they also offer advisement from retired people that have skills, are willing to provide services to people with small businesses. So that speaks to his point. So I actually think the stuff is probably out there. We just need to get everybody onto one page. I don't know exactly how we're going to do that in this meeting here, but maybe the small business owners that are in the construction business, and maybe with our help, can maybe we can funnel everything into one simple page in the county, and the Westchester County .gov, and that people can go to and find all of these resources. So those are my points. Thank you.
Very true. In fact, in the county executive's office, they have, they have alliances with SCORE, Service Corps Retired Execs. They've got alliances with a lot of these training programs. I think about 6 months ago, Astorino announced a program of training along the lines that you mentioned. So it's out there, and I hope you all enjoyed at least getting a feel for the different aspects of this. And Emily, did you want to say one other thing?
Yeah, so the Small Business Development Center, I'm assuming there's one in Westchester. I know there's definitely one in Kingston. They do provide training in terms of learning how to run a business. And then, there are SBA loans, Small Business Assistance loans, that's federal government. And then there's SCORE, as you mentioned several times. But we're putting together a resource guide for small businesses. It is focused, of course, on the Latino community, Hispanic community. But I think some of those resources could also be helpful to others in Westchester County.
Well, if there are no further questions, I do want to thank our panel. Please join me in thanking our panel. Emily Sampson from Mid-Hudson Pattern. It's Pattern for Progress. I was calling it for years Patterns for Progress. Steve Simpson of Northern Westchester BOCES. Daniel Dawkins, member of the BRI, builder, member of the BRI. And James Leggio and John Santos of Local 32 BJ Service Employees International. Thank you all very much for a very similar